You're not going to believe this, but Americans do not trust the media. The media is doing such a good job all the time. People don't trust them. I don't know why. Pew Research came out with a poll. Which news organizations are trustworthy and not trustworthy? Let's take a look. So believe it or not, CNN, the most trusted name in news, that's what they tell us they are. They are the most trusted, according to Pew. 54% of respondents believe that CNN is trustworthy. Only 20% said untrustworthy. And then, you see the other big networks, ABC, NBC, CBS, all kind of hovering around the 50 to 46 area. Then the cable news ones jump in a little bit less. I thought the one that was interesting here, Fox News 44%, MSNBC 38%, so I guess it depends who you like as to who you trust. New York Times down at 34%. And then some of the other interesting ones, Daily Show. Everyone says the young people get their information from the Daily Show, but only 16% of these respondents said they trust the Daily Show, 15% for Colbert. Hannity and Limbaugh not doing well, 12%. They're screaming all the time and they're not doing that well. Drudge Report, only 8%. And then finally, I want to stop with BuzzFeed, only 2%. I get a lot of stories from BuzzFeed for this show at this point, and I generally think they're pretty good. It's only 2%. They're like the hip, cool thing now. They're even partnered with CNN, who's #1 on this list. So why?
Well, BuzzFeed told me that the Gilmore Girls character I was Suki, and clearly I'm Gypsy, so I don't trust them anymore.
That does make sense. So it's those self-reported polls, guys.
What is the demographic that was polled? Because I think that's something that's important.
True,
what if they were polling all sort of older people? And obviously older people don't watch or trust the Daily Show as much as millennials. But yeah, it's interesting that CNN would be the most trusted, yet it always comes in second or third in relation to Fox in terms of viewership.
Yeah, people have a weird thing with CNN, right? Like, I feel like the reason I make fun of CNN so much is because I want it to be better. You know what I mean? Like, we all know what Fox News is on the right and we know what MSNBC is on the left. So when I watch television, I want to trust something. Yeah. So then when they do all the ridiculous plane coverage or just the endless 24-hour news cycle, when they have nothing to report on, then they say, we're not going to speculate, and they spend the next hour speculating. I always want them to be better. I think that's partly what's going on here. People saying, well, I trust them, but it's just, I trust them the most out of all this other shit.
It's successful branding. I think people like the idea of CNN more than they like CNN, more than they watch CNN.
Yeah.
And so I think there's this idea of it being kind of the way people used to think of the New York Times as the paper of record, the gray lady. Yeah. I think CNN has that kind of like Bayer aspirin brand trustworthiness, even though people are actually buying the generic because it's cheaper.
Yeah, I agree. What do you guys make of the fact that all the digital stuff is so low? So BuzzFeed that we talked about, but all of them. I mean, HuffPo, TYT wasn't even on there. I mean, why is it that all this stuff is so low? Because to me, it seems like online is actually the last bastion where you can get some freedom and some honesty, and yet people are still reporting that.
Yeah, I think that's the problem with digital media. It's that like everybody is just looking for, everybody's just, all these like publishing organizations like BuzzFeed, Huffington Post, they're just pumping out clickbait more and more, and I think that compromises the quality of the reporting.
Yeah. And again, I think you're going on your point from before. I'd like to see who got this poll. Who did Pew ask? Because if they're 25 to 38 or higher than that, then they're not going to be watching the Daily Show. They're not going to be getting news online. But I'd say younger certainly are.
Pew should do a poll on trustworthy polls. That would give us something there. How do you guys decide who to trust? I mention this every week that I don't know what to trust anymore, who to trust. Well, I go to all these sites, I watch all these news things, and usually by the end of any report, I'm thinking that was half bullshit. Every article, how do you decide who to get your news from in a way that makes sense to you?
Sadly, like most people, I think I probably just whatever matches my, the bias that I brought into it in the first place. Much like any Fox News watcher, just it's a different bias.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to, if I'm interested in a topic, I'll look at its Wikipedia, for one, to get a 30,000-foot sort of broad gist of what's going on. And then I spend a lot of time on Google. Yeah, try to form my own hypothesis of whatever that issue is.
Yeah.
But again, like I go to CNN.com. I think CNN is great. Again, I think that They're already awesome. I think their potential is limitless.
Do you guys think that the biggest problem we have in America is the failure of the media? You know, we talk about money in politics all the time, and I know all this stuff is interconnected and our politicians are all bought and nobody's honest and blah, 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 but that the media has just utterly failed us, so we don't even have an informed public to have the proper debates, which maybe explains why these numbers are all so terrible.
Well, we lost Ben Bradley this week, you know, who was one of the great bastions of you know, journalism at its peak in this country, or one of its zeniths. Yeah, I mean, I think obviously the corporatization of news, the fact that, you know, what Network told us 30 years ago, or 40 years ago, you know, about how when news and entertainment combine, when news has to get ratings, when news has to sell advertising, then yeah, then it becomes another show. And, you know, I think given that, you know, when you look at what does Rupert Murdoch own, and what does, you know, these very small handfuls of people who control a great deal of the mass media, obviously there's going to be a filtration process where, you know, I wonder sometimes even, I love Rachel Maddow on MSNBC, and I think, is she really going to tell me about GE, you know?
Yeah. Of course, and all the contracts that they have with military things, and, you know, it never sort of ends.
I think part of the problem is, like, when you ask people what it is that they want, they'll usually say vegetables, but if you watch them quietly, they'll go for the candy instead. And I think that people just need to be more sort of proactive and vocal about the kind of news that they want.